Trump's latest diplomatic initiative is summarized by a comprehensive, though highly ambitious, 21-point plan circulated among key Arab states on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. The core components of this plan focus on an immediate, comprehensive ceasefire in Gaza, the unconditional release of all Israeli hostages in exchange for a significant number of Palestinian prisoners, and the eventual dismantling of Hamas's military and governing capabilities. The plan proposes a transitional phase for Gaza, managed by an international body supervising a technocratic Palestinian government, a clear rejection of both Hamas control and long-term Israeli occupation. However, the most striking element, which serves as the diplomatic price for Arab cooperation, is Trump's assurance to leaders from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and others that he would actively prevent Israel from unilaterally annexing the West Bank. This pivot from previous stances, which were often viewed as fully supportive of Netanyahu's maximalist goals, is a crucial signal intended to bring moderate Arab states fully into the negotiation process. This development establishes a clear division. The U.S. is prioritizing regional stability and normalization, similar to the momentum of the Abraham Accords, while Netanyahu remains publicly focused on finishing the job in Gaza and resisting any political horizon that includes a pathway to Palestinian statehood or limits his West Bank policies. The analysis suggests Trump is leveraging his unique position to break the diplomatic deadlock by offering significant political cover to Arab allies who need an Israeli commitment to avoid annexation to justify normalization. Reasons and timing. The timing of this renewed push is rooted in both strategic necessity and political calculation. Strategic imperatives. The primary driver is the recognition that stability in Gaza is a prerequisite for achieving the administration's grand economic achievements in the region. Specifically, the long-sought normalization deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia, a cornerstone of a broader security and economic alliance, cannot materialize while the war rages and humanitarian suffering defines the conflict. For the Arab partners, preventing West Bank annexation is the non-negotiable red line that unlocks their cooperation. Trump's motivation is clear: to secure a sweeping diplomatic victory that delivers peace and prosperity, bolstering his legacy and regional vision. The creation of a stable, economically viable Gaza, possibly envisioned as the Riviera of the Middle East once rebuilt, directly supports this expansive economic strategy. Political timing. With the Gaza conflict enduring much longer than initially expected, international pressure has intensified. The meeting with Netanyahu, following productive engagement with Arab and Muslim leaders, positions the U.S. as the decisive broker ready to finalize a deal. This sequence maximizes the pressure on Netanyahu, forcing him to choose between his domestic political survival, which relies on his far-right coalition that favors maximalist security objectives and West Bank expansion, and the vital support of his strongest international ally. Consequences and challenges. The consequences of this diplomatic maneuver are high stakes, presenting both opportunities for a genuine breakthrough and significant risks of failure. Positive consequences. If successful, the plan could lead to the immediate release of hostages, halt the bloodshed, and establish a framework for Gaza's reconstruction, injecting much-needed stability. Furthermore, by drawing a hard line against West Bank annexation, the U.S. creates space for Saudi Arabia and other nations to formalize ties with Israel, potentially isolating extremist elements like Hamas and facilitating the long-term, moderate governance of Palestinian territories. Challenges. The greatest hurdles are internal and ideological. Israeli internal politics. Netanyahu's current governing coalition is deeply reliant on ministers who strongly advocate for West Bank annexation and oppose any concession that could lead to Palestinian statehood. Accepting the U.S. plan's demands regarding the West Bank or Gaza governance could collapse his government, triggering new elections. Hamas acceptance. The plan explicitly calls for Hamas's total disarmament and removal from governance. While amnesty is reportedly offered to militants who commit to peaceful coexistence, the organization's core ideological resistance makes full surrender unlikely without immense external pressure. Implementation. The concept of an international stabilization force and a technocratic government requires massive funding, security commitments, and consensus among multiple international actors, making the execution extremely complex and resource-intensive. Prediction and solutions. Prediction. A full, comprehensive, 21-point grand deal encompassing all aspects of peace, reconstruction, and permanent governance is unlikely to materialize immediately, primarily due to the domestic political constraints on Prime Minister Netanyahu and the near-certain resistance from Hamas to its own political dissolution. However, a Phase 1 breakthrough, focused on an immediate, prolonged ceasefire and the full hostage-for-prisoner exchange, is highly probable. The global moral imperative and the intense diplomatic pressure exerted by the U.S. and its regional partners make this limited exchange achievable in the short term, allowing both leaders to claim a crucial victory before tackling the more difficult political questions. The larger questions of West Bank annexation and permanent governance in Gaza will likely be deferred for later negotiations, ensuring that the talks remain protracted. Solutions for long-term success. Decouple security from territory. Any long-term solution must address Israel's security concerns without requiring perpetual military occupation. This requires a strong, internationally guaranteed security perimeter, perhaps policed by a multinational Arab Western force that is explicitly decoupled from land control. Economic empowerment with accountability. The massive economic plan for Gaza must be conditional on the absence of terrorist infrastructure. A trust fund mechanism, governed by Gulf states, the U.S., and Europe, should tie aid disbursement directly to verifiable milestones in security, de-radicalization, and democratic reform in the Palestinian Authority. Sustained diplomatic engagement. The U.S. must remain intensely engaged, applying constant, measured pressure on both sides. The pledge to block West Bank annexation should be maintained as the foundational element to ensure the continued goodwill and cooperation of Arab regional powers. The pursuit of peace must be treated as a marathon, not a sprint, with gradual, verifiable steps replacing all-or-nothing proposals.